bring it down. And there's our scale. You can see going from 0, and you see how it starts out white and then it gets darker, 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 darker. Very interesting over there. So you can see the darkest part being 25,000. Now I haven't had a pointer yet. We haven't brought it next to an actual column that actually represents this part, which like we will. It's just a particular scale at this time. So let's make it a little bit better. Okay, now we got a part. It's a pointer. It's a bar, right? So we're actually starting to get started here. And what we need to do now is we need to have a column. So I'm going to right click on columns. And then I'm going to go down to insert column. And I'm going to say insert column to the right. Excellent. All right. Now that I've got my column inserted to the right, I'm going to give it a label. And we've seen how to do this before. You just click on the inside. And I'm going to say KPI. There we go. And then once I actually have my KPI over there, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually finish up my scale real quickly, and then I'm going to turn around and drag it inside of the column. So we'll see that in just a second. But to finish it, let me add a pin first. And so what pins do is pins allow you to handle overflow, okay? So if you get an overflow error, you can turn around and handle that. So I'm going to start first right over here, and you guys can see this is my properties right off the bat. So I click on my scale. And now remember how we came back and I said that there was something we could click on. We could click on View and then this Properties checkbox, and that brings up a special window with all sorts of goodies. And inside of that special windows, if we come down, there's a special little property we can set for overflow, so to speak. And so I'm going to come down inside of this particular scale. And you guys will see all these different categories over here. Really nice for handling size, everything else that we basically had. And I mentioned earlier, we had actually gone through several ones of these earlier, and I talked about what these did and what they did in various things like color, image, you name it, and that it was another way to be able to get to anything that you actually needed to get to. Okay. Now there's a special category. Let me come down, 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 come down. And that special category deals with scale pins. So let me just come back and let me organize this to find it. And I mentioned A to Z to be able to find things too. And come down, and we'll click on this. Click on the scale first. There we go. So this is the scale right off the bat. Now that brings me back into the windows. And when I come down, aha, we are right there inside the scale pins. Let me show you the category real quick view real fast when we're inside of the scale. And then let's come down inside, and there's scale pins, and you guys can see maximum pin, minimum pin. I had used A to Z before to be able to find it, maximum, minimum, which was the real quick way. But just so you guys see the way the book did it, there's maximum, minimum right over here. And what we can do now is take this particular part where we've got our scale pins, and there's maximum, minimum, and name it inside of our scale pins. And let's say that inside of our scale pins, if you guys can see this particular section, there's an enable property. If we set that equal to true, it's going to allow for the pin to actually appear for even those values that surpass the 25,000 limit. So that can be extremely helpful. And then if you come down, you see that we've actually got it set to true at that particular point. We can also give those things a special color to make them, particularly set. So for example, we come into border color like the book does, and we'll make it green, meaning that, or lime, meaning that, look at this. This particular value actually surpassed all the values. Okay. Now once we're done with that, once we've got all of our values in there, right, there's one last step. And remember I said that a report builder makes it really easy to turn around and actually add this stuff? I mean really, really easy. Well, it makes it really, really easy to go ahead and add this stuff. So let's see it. After you finish doing this particular part, okay, so after you finish this particular part, the last thing to do is just simply add your gauge. Now I'm going to have you do it a different way than inside of the instructions, and that's just because I found that inserting it immediately into the actual, inserting your gauge immediately into the column makes it really small so that when you're developing it's hard to see. So I like to do everything on the outside first by dragging it out and making it big like this. And then I like to put it inside the column last. So let me show you a little trick just to be able to get it to work so that way your charts generally appear within the columns. And this doesn't just apply for the gauge. This applies everywhere. It's just a Brandon trick from development. That's it. And I won't call this official Microsoft anything or whatever else, but just something that helps me so that I don't have to first place them inside the column like the instructions have you do. Simply take the gauge, bring it over, and then I'll first put it inside sum. Now you can put it in any column you want to. There. Now when I put it inside of sum over here, so this is the sum of the total, let me click run temporarily and show you what happens. Oh, look at that. Whoa, that looks good at first, right? Until I expand it. Oh, not so good anymore. Oh no. Oops. That looks bad, right? Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Let me show you what I can do next. Click back on design. And now right click on it and just do a copy. That's it. A lot of people don't know that trick, but it helps out so much. So right click over here, now click paste, and paste it in every single one of these ones while you're developing. I'm going to leave the end out on purpose just so you can see what happens here. So let me click on run. And now let's expand it. Oh, that looks significantly better. Significantly better, as you can tell. Definitely. And you guys can see it over there. So I'll turn around and put it on the total row last. But you can definitely see the differences. Much, much, much better. Definitely for being able to see it and seeing it come together. So remember, it's just a copy and paste little trick. Nothing in the course or nothing in the official documentation. Just something that I've done myself from developing over the years. Okay. Now, we're almost all finished. We have one more KPI to do, and you guys have got down the charting features, or at least the KPI features. We've covered charting in depth already, so you know that at this point if you've been going through the series. On the very last part, I'm going to add some things, add one more thing, which is the indicator, okay? The indicator is sweet. Let me give myself a little more space, so I'm expanding this. Just give myself a little more space. There we go. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn around and create a new column. Right click on this, right click over here and on this particular part, insert column to the right, and I right clicked on the little gray square if you guys saw me click, by the way. On that little gray square, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this KPI indicator. Even though they said KPI in the instructions, I'll put KPI indicator. Or I'm running out of space, so I'll just put KPI indic. There we go. KPI indic for indicator. Okay. Now, once we actually have that part down, here comes the next part. So we've got a KPI. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and do an insert operation this time. And this time for my insert, I'll just go ahead and I'll actually place it in. I'll actually do an insert, and I'll actually place it in. So what I'm going to do is click on this subcategory cell first. There's my subcategory, right? And I'm going to click inside of this part. Then I'm going to come down, and you guys see over here, there's my insert. So I clicked on insert, then I clicked on subcategory. And look at this, there's indicator. Let me click on that. Double click. Now I get to choose a choice. And these are all those cool little indicators that typically, make really nice shapes. So for example, here's traffic lights. You guys can see the 3 traffic lights right over there. They're the rimmed ones. If we come down, though, these are the unrimmed ones, which are the most common that you'll actually see. We'll choose those without the little, square boxes. I'll click OK. Now, when you finish doing that particular part and you get your traffic lights in, so these are for the subtotals over here. So we can see that for the different subtotals, we'll be able to see lights. Now I can turn around if I want to, and I can choose to actually change my subtotals, right? And I can choose some things if I need to. So just to show you this particular part, now we've got our 3 traffic lights. I'm going to right click first on this indicator right off the bat. Then I'm going to click on indicator properties because that's where I change things, right? Then I'm going to go down to value and states. And now inside of value and states, I'm going to choose, okay, what's going to be the value based upon the sum of sales. All right, so the sum of sales is what we're looking at here to be able to judge if a company's been successful or not. Now, I can leave the defaults, which here's what the default tells me. If we're 0 to 33%, the maximum of whatever the maximal company is. So if we go up to 33% of whatever the maximal sales value is, bad. If we're 33 to 66%, neutral, which means yellow. And if we're 66 to 100%, great. And we let this go ahead and configure it. Now, usually what I'll do is I'll change that if I want to. Like maybe I put in something maximum like equal to 0 or minimum or whatever else. In this case, we're just letting it do it, but usually I'll put equal to 0 or equal to some sort of value that we consider good for our target. Maybe it's year over year. Who knows? Who knows? It can be so many different things whenever we make these things. Okay, let me just click OK, though, and leave it, though, for our purposes of our actual discussion here. Then, as we've all seen this particular part, let me go ahead and click on Run. Monitors a little, our screen a little, our resolution could use a little bit of work, but let me expand this. And look at this. When we expand it, oh, we've got an actual report detailing our current progress, right, and our current state. That's the beginning of a dashboard. That's what's known as a scorecard. Now, dashboard would have had charts or whatever else. We've covered how to do that already. If you've covered the other tutorials, you've got that part down. So we've actually got this built in now. Pretty impressive, definitely. And if you wanted to leave it to be able to see other things, we could easily, very easily. We could drag over the KPIs to other ones. We could also turn around and sum it differently. However we want to do this. So very interesting, very helpful in the report now. So we've seen little tricks. And remember the copy and paste trick you can also use? Not only can you use the copy and paste trick, but something that I've oftentimes done is I've come inside the indicator. I've clicked on indicator properties. I've clicked on value and states many times. And then when I've actually picked a value, for example, many times I will come right inside of here, inside of 0. And I might turn around and add something that indicates, like, for example, if the KPI was good or if the KPI was bad. So I'll give it a proprietary value, which is what we talked about. Especially depending upon what I need to add. So if I copy this, we saw how to paste. Real easy. That's just for demo purposes right there. You leaving it on a subtotal would normally be the way to go. And because we don't have much data, this is really pretty goofy. I hope in future demonstrations where I get to get in more depth once we've covered the fundamentals, three more lectures, we'll be able to definitely see some more powerful implementations of this, but still very handy. Very handy. So I hope you guys have liked it. The very next one is parameters. I hope you guys loved that part. We should definitely do it. And by the way, just to make things complete, I can now do a file, right? And if I want to, I can save as. Connects to SharePoint for me one day. In the meantime, as I begin to close this out, guys, really loved it. A lot of fun, definitely. Cannot wait to come back. I've got another one planned for next week for parameters, by the way. And then 2 more to go, one on mapping and one on expression. So we are almost there, guys. We really are. And I would say, yeah, this would be it. This was the series to take to an intermediate. And we'll call this dashboarding. Save it. By the way, you didn't have to use SharePoint at all to make this work. I just used SharePoint, so please remember that. You could have used regular reporting services, what's known as native mode, where it could have hosted it. I mean, you could have used anything you wanted to. I just chose to use SharePoint because I plan on doing some tutorials later on where I show goodies in SharePoint. And thank you guys again. Let's see, that's all there. So let me just click on this. Refresh my page for reports. There's dashboarding. I'll click on it. And it now displays through the browser, which in SharePoint 2013 means a lot considering that we have mobile functionality and all other kinds of goodies. It has been fun. I look forward to seeing you guys again. And I'm waiting for it to close. Last second. Bring up the image. Run. Some of you are like, I thought 2013 was faster. It can be when it's set up correctly. This is definitely the standby mode, and look at that. Aha! Renders gorgeously, as you guys can tell. With expanding and everything else built in for the goodies. All right. Have a very good one, guys. It was definitely a pleasure here again, and I cannot wait to do the next one. See ya!